1. Inside your head you are giving. Inside your head is a lost 10-year-old looking for a mother who cares in a normal way, not in a twisted way. But the nice you inside your head got let out less and less often, until the little kid that is nice in there was never shown at all. There came a time when I hadn't seen it for so long I thought it had died. It was only after he met you in a cafe and he told me that you still thought of yourself as nice that I wondered about it again. Well, I guess it's what you compare yourself with. If most of the people you know are like your drug dealer friend who enjoys the power which it gives him over others, or people like your mother who drinks and then gets violent, and then hospitalised and then promises to stop and then, just fill in some story from the plot of dreary soap operas. Any will fit and make do. And this latest contact from you comes at just such a time. You've run the circuit again, from here to your mother's, to your ex-girlfriend's, where she and her teenage kids are all on Prozac. And now your mother is in hospital, after trying to dry out, after another vodka binge, and so is in there with the DTs this time. And it's always at that point in the cycle that you would get in touch with him again, with us. And could it be that right in the back of your mind we are somehow part of this dreary circle of events? That by some relentless logic it must be our fate to host you here a fourth time? 2. The thing about being nice is that it's like what a teacher once said in class about being friendly. I'm friendly, someone could say. Ah, said the teacher, but it's not up to you to say that, is it? I mean, the only people who can really call you friendly are people who find you so, are your friends themselves. Thinking of that, I would put it to you. How do you know that you're nice? When your mother and your neighbours and your siblings and even some of your friends generally call you a hard case, a bully, a moaner, sometimes worse, a nasty bit of work. We are all nice inside our heads. I expect that's why serial killers are happy to kill other people, because they're sure that they're the ones who are in the right and that therefore that they matter and other people don't. I expect tyrants think they're nice because some of them are nice to their own cat. Nice is as nice does. I don't remember you being very nice. I remember the foul atmosphere in the house. I remember being made to feel guilty about having to use the upstairs bathroom when the downstairs one froze in winter. I remember the spray paint on the upstairs carpet because you had done stencils without putting any newspaper down. I remember who took every saucer in the place and left them out of doors for cats, who didn't get much because the rats found them first, until all but one, which I found some years later under a bush, were smashed. I remember the courtesy with which you dealt with guests and new people, scowling and growling at them as they went about their business, simply drinking tea or borrowing pots and pans. I remember the respect with which you treated the house as you turned pictures upside down and left graffiti logos on doors and walls, just to give this place that doss house chic. The day you finally threatened to hit me, I don't remember you being very nice. 3. I remember the third time you came back here, even though I had said third time unlucky, tried to warn you that this time would break it more than likely. Until finally, after a year of existing in an atmosphere like a dark cloud, when I requested, in as controlled a way as I could, that you please refrain from leaving those teaspoons and tea bags in the sink because they were staining the stainless steel, you turned on me with the viciousness that I had sensed might be waiting to break like a thunderclap all this time, and said bluntly to me, "If you ask me that again, I'll smack you in the mouth." I stepped back, amazed and oppressed, as every answer that sprang to my lips you forestalled, saying all that I was thinking back at me. "How dare you?" you shouted, taking away the very words I was about to use. "How dare you talk to me like that?" you screamed, the selfsame sentence I had been trying to form. You went on like that, until at last I smiled a grim half-smile, the only defence I could think of, which was to try and laugh at you for being so comic book dreadful, to laugh at how we had come to such a bleak pass. Mistaking me, you snarled, "Look, you're loving it. Look it, you smiling drama queen." The thing which you call everyone you know who argues with you, regardless of gender. I always did think it surprising the number of drama queens you knew. I had believed it of your mother. Of everyone else? Well, now I had my answer. 4. Drama queen. If after 7 years and then 9 months and then another year you had ever listened to a word I had said in order to know me at all, you would have known that you had stepped over a line that could never be undrawn, crossed an uncrossable boundary. Why I was smiling was because in the last resort of extreme emotion and then denied a voice or any reply, I had to find a way to express something. And that something was not a smile for or to you. It was well, I was right. It was a terrible idea to let him come back again. It was "I told you so," if you like. When I told you, I thought it wasn't a good idea. It was "Oh, here we go." It was, as you shouted and ranted, that whatever I had suffered, it could be as nothing to what you had suffered, justifying everything in your eyes, I imagine. It was the smile that said, "Ah, yes, that's just what I was wondering if you thought. All those awful things, and here they all are. It wasn't paranoia at all." It was a bitter, bitter expression of having been right, for what it was worth. Precisely nothing. 5. Drama queen, loving conflict and shouting and threats of violence. It was crystal clear when you said that you did not know me, had never known me. When, having grown up in a house of violence, I swore that it would never darken my own doors. Listening to the shouting of one parent, the weeping of the other, I promised myself that this would never happen to me, never be the home in which I lived. When I did choose a partner, it was to be someone level-headed, the sort of person with whom one would have discussions, disagreements with resolutions. If arguments, then ones that didn't hold anger or contain bitterness. Working compromises without festering grudges. Little shouting and no rankling. And not violence, never violence, not even a threat of it. Trust you to think from having heard oaths from downstairs in your room upstairs that when one of us was shouting at the computer for having wiped out something in a system crash, or at the printer for chewing up a lot of paper, or loudest of all at the pigeons who flew into the lounge and wheeled about crapping everywhere and cracking windows on their way out, trust you to always assume that it was some kind of ill-favoured quarrel between us, that we would shout like that at each other? Your jumping to unpleasant and false conclusions should have alerted me even years back then. No, it was because of my upbringing amongst the shouting and at last the broken glass, eventually the social worker and the police, that I so hate what you call drama. It is perhaps that which made it all such a big deal for me to be threatened in my own home. It's that makes it go beyond unacceptable and into unforgivable. Or if ever to be forgiven, then still unreconciled. Or if reconciled, then only after strenuous effort. No, I can't frame anymore. I can't picture what it would involve. 6. Of course, to you, it's just what you do. Your mother called you a bully, and it was then that I knew what she meant, when I felt just how oppressed I'd been, how a weight was lifted from me when you weren't there, or when I was away from home, how I eventually dreaded coming back. She called the police, and that's what I said I'd do too. You do, and I'll call the police. At that moment he said he thought, can I call the police now? Is it over yet? Can I be rid of all this? And now beyond the dream I had comes the nightmare, the idea that you thought you could just waltz up to the front step unannounced, the notion that you would come here again to darken my door. I like that you thought, oh, it's just me, about the threat, about the very moment when he stood between us saying, don't you hit her, and then I stood between you as you loomed to menace him, saying, "Don't you touch him!" And he pushed me for safety's sake out of your range, and you said, "Don't you push her." What? I wondered, all aghast, for there you were again, assuming that something was wrong between us. Insulting as ever. And then afterwards you said about yourself and what happened that it was just me. As if no one would take you seriously because they knew you didn't mean it. As if it meant nothing. Well, I really was on the point of calling the police. It meant something to me, I can tell you. 7. But as you never listened to anyone's past or anyone's troubles, having so much and so many of your own, perhaps including 1 or 2 of your own making, such as quarrelling with most of your friends, you will never comprehend that there's a big deal to be dealt with, that something might have been destroyed in that moment. And so you are upset at the idea of not being able to come here as you always used and eat at the old table. And it's not that I'm not sorry for all you've been through. I am. Looks like you were right the first time when you said, "You can take the boy out of the counsellor's state, but you can't take the counsellor's state out of the boy." But none of that gives you the right to make others' lives more miserable for the sake of your own. All this is just another episode, a frozen moment between what was and is to come. I hope you never darken my door, but can't know that you won't. But I hope not, because it would make me feel such a victim, the victim I always promised myself I'd never become.